Divination Usha agus Fáilte. Hello and welcome. It's Misha Amy, the Crafty Carlock, and today we're in the kitchen. It just smells so nice. You have the spices and then you can smell the fruit. And so as Samhain is approaching, and in true Irish fashion, I do love a barmbrack or a Báirín breac. So I thought I would go through the ingredients and method on how to make this, while also telling you a little bit about the tradition surrounding barmbrack or Báirín breac. So barmbrack is used at Samhain or Halloween to, I suppose, first of all, eat as a treat. It is a tea brack with a little bit of a twist. The second function of barmbrack is to use as divination. And how you do this is you take small tokens, so a ring for marriage, a coin for money, or a pea, which I still have to get for, what is the pea for? I think the pea is for being a pauper or being poor, but also there's different variations, as there always is in Ireland with folklore, anywhere with folklore. There are variations from town to town, county to county, and region to region. So some regions, instead of having a pea, might have a rag or a stick. It really depends on where you are. So before I forget, I'm gonna go and grab my pea. Just a regular old frozen pea. Right, so this method is a two-part method. It is best done as an overnight method, in that you have to soak part of the ingredients overnight. And the ingredients are 225 grams or 8 ounces of flour, self-raising flour, so regular plain flour. If you can add a little bit of baking powder is perfect there. 300 grams of fruit mix, 250 milliliters of cold tea, 100 grams of caster sugar, specifically golden caster sugar, 1 egg, and some mixed spice. Now, I've looked at various different recipes of barmbrack, and some of them include some Irish whiskey. So I will be including a shot of Irish whiskey with my barmbrack. You don't have to do that. It is not essential. It's just what I do. You also need some butter and flour to grease the tins, and you're using one of these kind of regular loaf tins. Standard loaf tin. So earlier this morning, I got up before work because I forgot to do it last night, or not that I forgot to do it last night. So twice a week I get home from college at about 10:30. After having some dinner, I boiled the kettle, got the tea bags ready, admired my cute little pumpkin decorations that I got recently. Kettle boiled, and then I filled the kettle or the teapot up with hot water and left it to stew. I then made myself a cup of tea and put in my milk, no sugar. Gave it a bit of a stir. And then I grabbed my college bag, my teacup, and headed on upstairs. Then the next morning, I got up after feeding the cats at 7 o'clock, quite tired before work, and went about soaking the fruit. So I measured out the 250 milliliters of the cold tea, and then in a separate bowl, I put 150 grams of raisins and 150 grams of sultanas. I just spilled sultanas everywhere. And then I added the liquid to the fruit, gave it a bit of a stir with a wooden spoon. I grabbed a plate then to put on top and put it in the fridge. So I'm going to leave the fruit soak in the tea for the day. Usually you do this overnight. I forgot to come back down last night because I fell asleep while I was waiting for the tea to cool because it has to be cold tea. So I am going to go get ready for work, and in about 8-9 hours I will be back and I will finish off the tea breac. Also, I was going to use my grandmother's book that she gave me. It's Full and Plenty, Complete Guide to Cooking, or to Good Cooking, by Maura Laverty. It's an Irish cookbook and it has a lot of like traditional Irish recipes and then a lot of like European recipes. And I got this last year off her. I can't remember exactly why I asked for it. So yeah, and I went just out of curiosity to see what the barmbrack recipe was in this, and it's under the title Fancy Yeast Breads and Buns. And this method is different. So this method does it as a yeasted bread, and I'm still very afraid of yeast. For this method as well, you need actual yeast. I don't think you can use quick yeast. You need activated yeast. I did get activated yeast when we were on honeymoon. I found a health shop in Galway and they had activated yeast, so I bought it because I couldn't find it anywhere. Anywhere online that I looked was sold out, and I don't know where I put it. I don't know what bag it was put into when we were coming home, so I need to find it, or I need to find more. But I'm not going to use that method. I might try that method at a later stage. Maybe I might try it next year instead, because I just don't really have the time to be dealing with yeast this year. Yeah. So this recipe book will be brought out at various stages. It was used as a pot stand as well at one stage. Okay, I'm gonna go get ready for work.
Moments later. One eternity later. Two hours later.
The fruit has been soaking for, I'm gonna say 10 hours. We are after dinner this evening when I'm doing this, so there is still a little bit of liquid in the bottom of the bowl, but the fruit is adequately soaked. So as you can see here, there's still a little bit of liquid down the end of the bowl, but most of it has soaked in and kind of rehydrated the mixed fruit. And the mixed fruit is a mixture of sultanas and raisins. So I usually do half and half. I always find it quite difficult to find mixed peel, so mixed orange peel or citrus peel. You can also add to it. You can also get specific fruit mixes in a lot of supermarkets as well. Basically whatever you can find, because that's kind of what was done. So I am going to preheat the oven before I do anything, and a good rule of thumb is usually preheat the oven to 200 degrees Celsius, and I'm not sure off the top of my head what that is in Fahrenheit or gas mark, but I will put it here. So oven is preheated, I'm going to weigh out the ingredients. So into the soaked fruit, I am going to add 225 grams of plain flour. I am using gluten-free flour because I have recently discovered that gluten doesn't really agree with me. So I'm trying to cut it out as much as I can. So 225, 226, that's fine. A lot of people say baking has to be an exact science. I don't agree. It has to be absolutely exact. But close enough. I'm gonna add a little bit of baking powder, about half a teaspoon into that as well because I'm not using self-raising. So that's that. Next, I'm gonna add in the 100 grams of golden castor sugar. Oh, that is a bit too much. So take some of that out. And now it's at 99. $102. Okay. So as I was saying before, the recipe book that my grandmother gave me does say, and does give a kind of a yeasted method, which I might try, but just not today. So into our mix, we are adding the mixed spice. So I just use a generous helping of mixed spice. I don't really measure it, to be honest. I would say put in 1 heaped teaspoon of mixed spice altogether, just as a guesstimate, and then just maybe 1/4 teaspoon of ground ginger. And the next thing I'm gonna add is the shot of whiskey. So again, this is completely optional, but I'm just adding it in. I like how it comes out in the flavor, and it's just how I make my barmbrack. So that's that. And then the final thing to do is, before we add our divination stuff, is to actually beat an egg before we throw it into the mixture. We just throw in the egg. That's all of the edible ingredients. Well, the pea is technically edible. And what you're going to do then is you're just going to turn the bowl and fold in the mixture together until it's properly combined. And it is a very wet mixture, as you can see and hear. There is a very strong smell off that whiskey. And that's basically what you're looking for. You can't really mix it much more than that. Just make sure everything's combined, that you don't have any lumps or bumps in it from the flour. And now it's time to set that aside for a second, and we are going to grab some parchment paper or baking paper. Just have a little bit here, and we're just going to tear off a couple of small bits for our divination tools. So this was one of the many things during Samhain that were used for divination, and I do have a video coming out next week, or later this week actually, which is about Samhain and the Samhain traditions, which does include a lot about divination. So make sure you check that out. If you haven't subscribed already, do think about subscribing, so you get notifications when I do upload. And while you're subscribing, or if you haven't already, do hit that bell as well for notifications, because you also will get notifications that way. So I don't have to wrap the pea, but I'm going to wrap the pea just in case it's not seen. You could opt to not wrap it so that it isn't necessarily seen, but it's not exactly the best one to get, but it's divination for the upcoming year. So we have the 3 of those done. They're in baking paper so that A, nobody eats them on accident, and B, so even though I have cleaned them, like I've cleaned the coin and I've cleaned the ring, just so that they're not like, I don't know, going all weird. So in they go. 1, 2, 3. And we're gonna stir those in. My trusty wooden spoon. And then I get my greased and floured tin. And you do want to do this, because if you don't do this, then you run a very high risk of the tea brack actually sticking to the pan and not being able to get it out. So that's not fun for anybody. So in goes the mixture straight into the tin, and my oven is preheating behind me, and I'm just going to throw that in for about an hour. It takes about an hour to cook, but depending on your oven, it could take a shorter amount of time, it could take a longer amount of time. So I've left this for a few minutes and it's slightly cooler. So I'm just gonna flip it over, and there we have it. So I'm gonna finish that off cooling for another little while because it's still about too warm to cut. So here we have the barmbrack. It is still a bit warm, but honestly I just want a slice of it now. I want to make sure it's cooked in the middle, and it just honestly just smells absolutely delicious. You can still smell a hint of the whiskey with it, or in it. So it is very much falling apart. But there you go. There's a slice of brack. So as you can see, the mixed fruit, and there's so many different things that have been put in it, and it really is just what you have available at the time, in terms of fruit. And I've seen it done, as I said before, with like mixed orange peel and candied peel, but also I've seen it with like cherries, glassy cherries. The Irish for barmbrack is Báirín brack, and Báirín means speckled, in that it's speckled with the fruit. Now, as always, with most things I bake that are in loaf form, I will put a very healthy or maybe unhealthy amount of butter on it, and that is just how I was raised. So let the butter just melt on that there. The butter is actually, it's a new block of butter, so it's just a little bit hard. And I've got this bit into 2, and you can see there that it's speckled the whole way through. It just smells so nice. You have the spices, and then you can smell the fruit, and yeah. You want some? It's so nice. I do feel like the one I made last year, which was made with gluten flour, was a little bit more, I don't know how to describe it, a little bit more sturdy. But I think I also did leave that cool fully as well, so that might have something to do with it. So there you have it. I didn't get any of the little brown paper token charms as they're referred to in that slice, but I will be sharing this with some friends tomorrow and maybe they might get some. So while that was cooking, I had a quick look on Dúchas.ie, which is our National Folklore Collection, and there's a couple of different variations, as I said earlier, on the charms that you put in the barmbrack. I found some of those variations and some ones I didn't actually mention and didn't know about earlier, which were interesting. So with the pea, there are variations on the pea, as I said before. So I would have taken it that the pea meant that you weren't going to be prosperous, whereas the coin meant that you were going to have wealth and kind of luck in that kind of way. But the pea in some regions actually meant that you wouldn't get married. And a lot of the Samhain divination is around marriage, which I will go into in the Samhain video, which I will link up here once that's ready. Another charm that was put into Barmbrack was a matchstick, and a matchstick would mean that you would get married, but it would be an unhappy marriage. A thimble was also put in. So a thimble, either, depending on the region, meant that you were going to not get married and be doomed to a life of spinsterhood, or you would marry a tailor or a dressmaker. Then there was the addition of a nut, so a little quinoa nut of any description, and that would mean that you were going to be a bachelor, I suppose, if you were male, or a spinster again if you were female. And then this one was quite curious, given the divination part in it, but either a religious medal, so it would be quite common for people to have like a St. Christopher's medal or something like that. Small religious medal, usually like a coin, would be put in, and if you got that, it would mean you were going to be a priest or a nun. I also saw a reference to putting a cross in the barmbrack, like a little mini cross. Again, it wouldn't be uncommon for people to have like cross pendants and things like that would be small enough to go into the brack, so that does make sense. And again, that was of a similar outcome to the religious medal, in that you would be said to become a priest or a nun if you got that. So I hope you enjoyed this little video, and it is quite a straightforward recipe. It's quite easy to do once you have the tin and everything, and you can find the ingredients, of course. And I'm really impressed with how it came out this time gluten-free. It's still delicious. It held together. The baking time was the same. I would just recommend maybe waiting till it's fully cooled before you cut into it, because it is a little bit crumbly, but just sometimes you just can't wait. You need the melted butter, warm, fresh brack out of the oven. So I've been Amy. Thank you very much for watching. As I said before, if you haven't subscribed already, please do think about subscribing if you like my content. Do check out my other videos. I'll have more Crafty in the Kitchen videos coming up soon, especially coming into the winter period. There will be stew, box tea, and just some very nice comfort food. I also have lots more on Irish folklore coming up, Irish history, and just a lot more fun and interesting content on the way. Also, I did mention it in my last video, but thank you so much to everyone who's subscribed so far. I haven't been uploading as regularly as I would like, and that is going to change over the next few weeks. I have a lot of content on the way, a lot of content scheduled, and I've just been seeing the numbers on the subscribers go up and up and up, and that's been amazing. when I get to 500, I will be doing an Ask Me Anything video. So if you do have any questions, any suggestions, or anything at all, you can ask me anything. Drop the questions in the comments below, or you can find me on any of my social media channels and submit the questions that way. So until next time, Gurb Míle Mágad for watching. Slán go fóill, I will see you in the next video.